Yo guys, what's going on? Thanks for coming back to another episode of Aura Audio, and today we're going to be taking a look at the code of this drum sampler app from AudioKit. Alright, so the first thing you guys are going to want to do is download Xcode. That's the app we're going to be using to make our apps. And then you can go ahead, open it up, and we'll create a new project. Now this is going to be simple, nothing complicated, just a plain old app. And you can leave it multi-platform, just don't worry about any of that. And then we'll name it whatever you want, really. First, you're going to want to add an account, and you can use the same Apple ID you use to download apps on your regular device. And then enter your password. So all you have to do now is download manual profiles. I like to do that. And then manage certificates, and I'm just going to go ahead and add this. And there we go. It says we already have a certificate. So if it says that, then you don't need to do anything. Awesome. So now this is our bundle identifier. So this is how our app is identified on the device. So all you have to do is just follow this. So I'm just going to put my name, and then there you go. You can leave it like that. In team, make sure you select the account we just added, and don't worry about these ones. Awesome. Just like that, we're starting to app develop. Pretty cool. So now you're going to switch to the iOS or whatever device you want to build on. I'm going to be using the iPhone, and I'm going to go ahead and plug my iPhone now, plug it into my computer. All right, and now it should detect a device. I'm going to go ahead and record on the device just so you guys can see. All right, now I'm recording, and it's going to ask me, do you want to trust this computer? I'm going to click yes, enter my passcode. You guys didn't see that. And yeah, now it's pretty much going to prepare it for development. And then I'll click on my iPhone. I'm going to press the play button to build it. And then, cool trick for this, just click always allow. Enter your password, just click always allow. This is so that the app can be code signed, so it's validated to run on our device. All right, there we go. Build succeeded. That's always a good sign. All right, so now we have actually got the app installed on our device. It might fail to run. That's completely normal. If it says this, I'm going to show you what to do right now. So what you want to do is go to the settings, go to general, and go to device management, and just approve this profile. This is just so that, again, to help with that code signing, and just so we can have the developer certificate for our device. All right, go ahead, build it again, and hey, hello world, hello. All right. Let's go ahead and download AudioKit now. So we're going to be just looking through the AudioKit cookbook, which is an app that will show us how to get this sampler going. First, you want to download GitHub Desktop, very useful program that's going to help us set this up. Then you're just going to go ahead, go to that, and once you go to the AudioKit cookbook, go ahead and go to code, and open with GitHub Desktop. And then just hit clone, and bam, you're done. Now what I'm going to do is go to the GitHub folder and copy it, and then I'm going to paste it so I have a backup. And this is what I'm going to be working from. All right, now we're going to open it up, open up the Xcode project. And first thing I'm going to do so that it can be code signed on my device is I'm going to go ahead, go to the project, signing in capabilities inside the app target, and I'm going to choose my developer account. But I'll leave the bundle identifier because that should be fine. All right, now we should be able to build this app on the device. One thing I forgot to mention is also before you guys download Xcode, you want to make sure you're on the latest software. So if you go to this Apple tab and then about this Mac and go to software update, It's always a good idea to make sure you're on the latest version, at least the latest public version, like the one that shows up here, because there can be a lot of errors that you might run into if you're on an earlier version. But anyway, let's go ahead and build this AudioKit app on our device. So I'm going to go ahead and start recording. All right, let's go ahead and give it a shot, see what happens. And the build failed because there are some errors. So it looks like it's missing the AudioKit package. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, for some reason it looks like this one didn't load. So I'll go to this project tab, go to the project, Swift packages, and remove it. And then I'm just going to basically re-add it. So I'll go up to this file, Swift packages, add package dependency, and I'm just going to copy the AudioKit repo, which is AudioKit/AudioKit. So copy this URL, and I'm going to paste that in there. Awesome. And I'm going to choose v5 main, just like it had it. And now it should find it. Great. Let's try it again. Awesome. So it looks like it's actually working, which is a good sign. Dang, my computer's going ham. You can hear the fan. Awesome. That is what I like to see right there. I love seeing that. So it looks like it just opened right up. We didn't even need to approve anything because we already did. And I'm going to click yes because I want it to use the microphone. That's just for other effects. But today we're going to be focusing on this drum pad app. So make sure your mute is off on the phone. Just flip it. And now the sound should be on. Yeah, that was out of time, but you get what I mean. This is a pretty cool drum app. So yeah, let's flip back to our previous project. Actually, I'm going to show you guys how you can find the code for that inside of the cookbook. So what you can do is there is a README file, which is in the main directory, I think. Yeah, right here. So go to that. It gives you all sorts of tips, and it says the recipes are each of the files that basically create the effect or page for that effect. So we're going to go to the drums effect or instrument, and look at that. You can see all the code for it. So this is the piece of code we're going to be creating today. All right, now let's go back to Window, go to the Welcome window, and go back to our drum sampler app. In the future, I'd like to improve this app and add some other functionality that AudioKit does not introduce, but I just want us to get familiar with this app first. And that's really the great thing about AudioKit, is that all this code is open source, so you can use it as a starting point. So let's talk about this struct. What does that mean? First, let's import all of our frameworks. So this project, we haven't even had added AudioKit yet, so let's go ahead and do that. I go into the Swift packages. I just have the URL memorized now because I've been using it so much. It's a great framework. All right, and I'm going to do the v5 main just like this one. All right, awesome. So now I would just go ahead and build this again, just so we don't get an error, where I'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, just go ahead and build this again and see now it's building all of the stuff inside of the AudioKit framework. So it's running on my iPhone now. Still looks the same, just saying hello world, because we haven't done anything, but now it has the AudioKit framework built into it. So that's good. So what we want to do now is import that framework into this file called content view. Now that's the view that we saw in the beginning that says hello world. So we're going to go ahead and import an AudioKit. And this is why we had to build it first, so that way Xcode can find it. All right, now let's create this struct right here. Now what is that actually? Well, this is just a piece of code that makes it easier for us to load drum samples. So you can see here that each of these just creates a drum sample just like that, and we don't even have to think about it. We just have to know, okay, we're going to call this, we're going to have this file, and we're going to have it play this MIDI note. So when this MIDI note is triggered, we're going to play that sample. That's all it is. And if you're not new to programming, you might know, oh, there's classes too. Well, how are classes different from structs? The only difference in this case is that structs are objects that can be copied. Mainly, they are copied. So, for example, if we go to this file and we make a copy of it, so go to my downloads, just copy it there. You see, if I make changes to this file, the changes won't be in this file. They'll be in this file because this is a copy. But what if I do something else? What if I make an alias? Make alias. Then I move that right here. Well, now, if I change this file, it's going to change that one as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if you're still confused about structs, definitely check out the documentation on SwiftDocs. It's very helpful. But basically what it says is structures are value types. And that's a type whose value is copied when it's assigned to something called a variable. And we'll get to that. Another helpful video comes from the Cherno. I love watching his channel. If you're kind of already started in programming, this might be an easy resource to go to because he kind of explains the differences. But anyway, let's go back to the struct here and let's talk about these things called variables. What is a variable? So variable is just a place that you can store something in the computer's memory. So let's create our struct first. And we could call it anything. We could call it sample. Doesn't matter. But this struct is a piece of information that's going to have many different parts to it. It's going to have a name, it's going to have a file name, and it's going to have a MIDI note. And that's what we saw here. Now, the reason you see string int AV audio file, that's the type of thing we're creating inside the structure we're building. So this structure, this is what makes up an audio sample. So it's got a name, which is a string. And whenever we want to specify the type, we just do colon and then the type name. Now a string looks something like this, like what we saw here where it says open hi-hat. It's just text. That's all it is. So we're going to have a name that is that name. And then our file name is the directory that that sample is in. And the MIDI note is just an integer because MIDI notes are really just integers. And an integer is any number that is not a fraction. And then finally we have our audio files. So what we're going to need for this is we're going to have to import this other framework called AV Foundation, which stands for Audio Video Foundation. So AV Foundation. All right, now we should be able to do this. So now we're going to create another variable, and that is our audio file. That is going to be our sample. And this is tricky. This type, any of these types actually can be something called an optional. Now what an optional is it's something that can be optional. That's exactly what it is. And it sounds very vague, but whenever you see a question mark, usually think of it as you're not sure about something. So we're not sure if this variable is ever going to have a value. It could be empty. So that's all that is. And I have a helpful link to optionals right here, SwiftDocs again. And all it says about them is basically optionals are variables or constants where a value may be absent. I'm not sure, do they? Yeah, I think constants might be able to be optionals as well. Not sure. Don't quote me on that. But constants, let's talk about those. So variables, there's space where you can reserve in the computer's memory for something, like maybe it's an audio file. Well, constants are not different, except they're spaces that can't be changed ever. So I could do like var audio file equals whatever, and I could change it later, so I could set it equal to something else. But with a constant, you can't do that. And the way we specify a constant, instead of doing var, we say let. That's how you do that. All right, so now we can do something where we create this init method. Now this init function is what's run as soon as we create one of our structures, a particular instance of it. So as soon as we create these drum samples right here, it's going to run those init for each of those. So let's take a look at this. We have our pretty name, which doesn't have a name, so that's why we run the underscore before it. So you notice, oh, here it's specified as file, and here it's specified as note. Well, here it doesn't have a name, so that's why we do that. And then we have the file, and then we have the note. So that's all we do. And we copy those into these variables right here. So name is equal to pretty name, file is equal to file, and then MIDI note is equal to note. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have init, pretty name, which is of type string, and then file, which is also of type string, and note, which is of type int. All right. So name is equal to pretty name, file name is equal to file, and then MIDI note is equal to note. Hey, not that. I just changed it randomly because I didn't have any equal sign. There we go. All right. Awesome. And now inside this initializer, we have a special thing called guard. Now this is not tricky. I'm going to explain it for you guys. It is tricky when you're first learning it, but it shouldn't be too difficult to explain. So a guard statement is used to transfer program control out of scope if one or more conditions aren't met. And guard statements use something called optional binding. Now those things are complicated, so I'm just going to explain them to you in as English as possible. So optional binding is where you take a value that's optional, aka this statement right here might not return something, so it might give you something that's empty. And if this appears to be empty, or like the optional doesn't have a value, then this guard statement is going to execute this code in these brackets, which just says return. And so basically what we're telling it is, if we can't find this, just cancel this. But otherwise, we're going to tell it, if it does find it, then we're going to store this inside this URL, and that we are later going to deal with right here. Okay? But otherwise, we're just going to exit out of here because we want to prevent it from going further. Now, what is this? Bundle.main.resource URL. Let's find out. The best way to do that is by using a print statement. Whenever you're curious about what a value prints out, you can do that. So I also like to mark those statements so I know that the debugger is printing that out from what I wanted it to. So what we're going to do is say bundle.main.resource URL. And I'm just going to, whenever I do the exclamation, that means I'm confident that something exists. So I'm confident that this has a value. I'm just going to go ahead and try it out. But if it doesn't, that means your app will crash. But I'm just going to do that for now because I'm confident that this has a value. So as you can see, here we go, testing. And it just says private/var/containers, blah, blah, blah. It's basically the directory that our app uses on the device. That's all it is. So we can go ahead, now that we know that, what this appending path component is, if you continue printing and experimenting, you'll see that all this does is to this path right here, this file path, it will add another component to it, which is this sample path. And if we look here, we see that this project has a samples directory where all the samples are. All of these directories get stored inside of this container, so it recognizes that that's a directory inside of there. So that should be a valid directory. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and show this in the Finder. And I'm going to copy that to our project here. So I will go here. You can literally place it anywhere, and I'm going to choose copy items if needed, and then leave everything else. So look at that. Now we got a samples folder inside of our project. And these are the AudioKit samples, so I think it's okay if we use them here for learning purposes, but I would ask them for permission if you want to release it to the App Store about that, because they have some rules. But for here, we're just going to be using for a learning purpose, so we're not going to be submitting anything. Anyway, let's write out this guard let. So again, I'm just going to explain it one more time. We're going to set this constant equal to this bundle.main.resource URL, which is an optional type. And then we're going to append path component, which is our file that we input up here. But if we can't find that, if we can't find this file, we're going to get the heck out of here. We're basically going to cancel. You ever heard the term? I know the term's being a lot now, like, oh, this is canceled, that got canceled quick because it didn't, like, I hear that term a lot, especially in 2020, like, their party got canceled because they weren't going to wear masks. Like, that's the same thing here. If we can't find this file, this guard is just going to cancel our request to set this URL equal to that, because there's no point if there's nothing that exists. All right, on to do catch. This also looks a little bit intimidating, but I'm going to try to break it down for you. What a do catch does is, a do is we're going to go into something with a plan, and then catch is like, okay, this is our plan B. That didn't work out, so we're going to try something else. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to try to get an A on this test, but say I end up actually getting a D. Well, okay, now we have to go to plan B, which is study more, right? Study more for the next test. So same thing here. First, we're going to do something, which is we're going to set this audio file property equal to an AV audio file. And we're going to try, because this is a try method, so it might not always work. So we might not be able to load the audio file for some reason. So if that doesn't work, then we're going to do this code right here, which is going to log something. And log is it's a special type that's part of AudioKit, so that's why we need to have AudioKit imported for this lesson. And then we're going to say could not load, and what is this $sign? Well, that $sign is going to go back to this variable. It's going to see, oh, this variable is called this, and it's going to use that instead of file name. All right, so let's go ahead and write all of this out. So do, what are we going to do? We're going to set our audio file property of the structure equal to an AV audio file that we're going to try and create by doing, we're going to do for reading. So we're going to read from a URL, and that's the URL we set up with this guard statement. Now, if that doesn't work, we're going to go to our plan B by catching that. And normally this is to catch the error. So we're going to say could not load, and then file name. So what did they say? File name. Yep. Gotcha. And $sign, because we don't want to just say could not load file. We want to say what specifically could we not load? And that is this file name right here. And bam, that's all we're going to do. We're going to try running this just to make sure we don't have any errors. I'm going to record on here just to show you guys what it looks like. So as you can see, it looks pretty much the same, and that's because this right here is our actual view of the app. So in order to do anything, we'll need to do some stuff in here. But that's all the time I have for today. We're going to be breaking this down in the next couple of days, so you will have a functioning app. But once we break it down further, once we actually learn how this sample works in the next couple of days, then we're going to add functionality to it. And I'm really excited about that. So I hope you guys stay tuned. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.